Musk sat in his sleek Austin office, the glow of computer screens casting shadows across his tense face. Papers littered his desk, legal documents stamped with the name Jasmine Crockett, the Texas congresswoman who'd just slapped him with a $750 million lawsuit. Her claim burned in his mind. Musk's DOGE cuts had wrecked lives, and she was out for blood. Outside, the night was quiet, but inside, his world was a storm. Crockett's voice from her recent TV appearance echoed in his head. She'd called him an idiot, a fraud who hid behind hired brains. The words stung, not because they were true, but because they dared to challenge his fight for the future. Crockett stood in a Dallas courtroom, her eyes blazing as she faced reporters. She gripped the podium, her voice sharp and clear. "Elon Musk thinks he's above the law," she said. "He's hurt people, ruined jobs, and I'm here to make him pay." The crowd cheered, her words a spark igniting their anger. She'd seen the damage from Musk's DOGE roll. Families left jobless, communities gutted by his reckless cuts. Her lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about tearing down a man she saw as a menace. Back in Austin, Musk slammed his fist on the desk, his heart pounding. He'd built Tesla, SpaceX, a legacy of dreams, and now this woman wanted to crush it. His phone buzzed with alerts. Reporters were circling, digging into Crockett's claims. She'd accused him of dodging accountability, of using his wealth to silence critics. Musk's eyes narrowed. He wasn't running, not yet, but her attack was a blade at his throat. He called his legal team, his voice cold. "She wants a fight? I'll give her one." Crockett wasn't backing down. She stood in her office, papers spread out, her team mapping out the next move. Musk's lawyers had already fired back, calling her suit a desperate grab for attention. She laughed, bitter and fierce. "He's scared," she told her aide. "He knows I've got him." Her evidence was ironclad. Documents showing DOGE's cuts had violated federal rules, testimonies from workers Musk's policies had crushed. She'd make him face the pain he'd caused, no matter how loud he roared. Musk paced his office, his mind racing. Crockett's lawsuit wasn't just a legal blow, it was personal. She'd painted him as a villain, a crook who'd betrayed the country. His hands shook with rage. He'd fought too hard, risked too much to let her win. Outside, a car waited, ready to take him to a private jet. Fleeing wasn't surrender, he told himself. It was strategy. He'd fight from abroad if he had to, but Crockett would pay for this. His voice was a growl as he grabbed his coat. "She thinks she can break me? She's wrong." Crockett faced the cameras again, her voice like steel. "Musk can run, but he can't hide," she said. The news was breaking. Musk's jet was spotted leaving Austin. Her lips curled into a grim smile. She'd pushed him to the edge and he was cracking. The lawsuit was only the start. She'd chase him to the ends of the earth if needed. Her fight wasn't just for the money. It was for every person Musk had stepped on. The crowd roared, and she raised a fist, ready to strike again. Musk's private jet sliced through the night sky, engines roaring as it climbed above the Texas plains. Inside, he sat rigid, his face a mask of fury, eyes fixed on a tablet streaming news of Jasmine Crockett's relentless campaign. Her words, from a fresh press conference, burned into him. She'd called him a coward, a man fleeing justice after her $750 million lawsuit gutted his empire. The cabin was dim, but his mind blazed with rage. Crockett wasn't just after money. She wanted his name, his legacy, torn to shreds. He gripped the armrest, his knuckles white. She'd pay for this, no matter where he landed. On the ground in Dallas, Crockett stood in a packed community center, her voice booming to a crowd of workers hit hard by Musk's DOGE cuts. "He's running!" she shouted, her eyes fierce. "Musk thinks he can escape, but I'm coming for him." The room erupted, fists raised, her words fuel for their anger. She held up a photo of a shuttered factory, one of Musk's casualties, and the crowd roared louder. Her lawsuit was their vengeance, a blade aimed at a man who'd left their lives in ruins. She wasn't stopping. Not now. Not ever. High above, Musk's jet banked toward an unknown destination, his team scrambling to secure a safe haven. His phone buzzed with furious messages from allies, politicians, investors, all rattled by Crockett's suit. She'd exposed documents proving his DOGE decisions broke rules, cost jobs, and lined his pockets. The news painted him as a traitor, a billionaire who'd sold out his country. Musk's jaw tightened. He wasn't a traitor, he was a visionary, and Crockett was too small to see it. "She's a bully," he muttered, his voice a low growl. "I'll crush her." Crockett moved through the crowd, shaking hands, her resolve like iron. A worker, eyes red from tears, told her how Musk's cuts cost him his home. She nodded, her heart steeling. "We'll get justice," she promised, her voice steady. Her team had new evidence. Musk's emails, smug and careless, dismissing the worker's pain. She'd use it to bury him in court, to make him feel the weight of every life he'd wrecked. Her phone rang. A source whispered Musk's jet was headed overseas. She smirked, fierce and unyielding. "Let him run! I'll hunt him down." Somewhere over the Atlantic, Musk stared out the jet's window, the darkness mirroring his thoughts. Crockett's face was everywhere, on screens in his mind, her voice cutting like a knife. She'd turned his fight for progress into a crime, his sacrifices into greed. His hands shook, not with fear but with a hatred that consumed him. He'd built rockets, cars, dreams, and she dared to call him a fraud. He opened his laptop, drafting a message to his followers, his words sharp. "Crockett's lying. She's a vulture, and I'll fight her to the end." He hit send, his eyes cold. Back in Dallas, Crockett stood before a sea of reporters, her voice a whip. "Musk's gone, but this isn't over," she declared, holding up her lawsuit papers like a weapon. The crowd cheered, their anger a living force. She'd heard his latest message, his pathetic attempt to rally support. It only fueled her fire. "He calls me a vulture," she said, her eyes blazing. "I'm his judge, and he's guilty." Her team was tracking his jet, closing in on his destination. She'd make sure he had nowhere to hide, no way to escape her wrath. The jet's engines hummed as it descended toward a private airstrip in Dubai, the city's glittering skyline a stark contrast to the storm raging inside Elon Musk. He leaned forward, his face pale, eyes bloodshot from sleepless fury, scanning. News feeds on his tablet. Jasmine Crockett's latest salvo dominated every headline. Her Dallas speech, accusing him of abandoning the workers he'd crushed with his DOGE cuts, had gone viral. Her $750 million lawsuit was a noose tightening around his neck, and her words stung like acid. Musk's a fraud, running from the truth. He slammed the tablet down, his voice a harsh whisper. "She's nothing. I'll destroy her." In Dallas, Crockett stood in a war room, her team hunched over laptops, tracking Musk's every move. Maps and documents covered the table, evidence of his DOGE violations stacked high. She paced, her eyes fierce, her voice sharp as she spoke to her lead lawyer. "He's in Dubai," she said, her lips curling. "Thinks he's safe. He's wrong." The room buzzed with energy, her team fueled by her relentless drive. She'd just gotten word of Musk's latest statement, a bitter rant calling her a liar out for fame. She laughed, cold and fierce. "He's scared, and I'm just getting started." Musk stepped off the jet, the desert heat hitting him like a slap. His security team hustled him into a black SUV, their faces grim. Dubai was a fortress, a place to regroup. But Crockett's lawsuit followed him like a shadow. His phone buzzed with alerts, investors pulling back, allies distancing themselves, all spooked by her damning evidence. She'd leaked more emails, ones where he mocked the workers' pleas, calling them whiners. The world was turning against him, and her voice was the loudest. He clenched his fists, his heart pounding. "She's twisting everything," he growled. "I'll fight dirtier." Crockett faced a packed press conference, her voice booming, clear and fierce. "Musk's hiding in Dubai, but he can't hide from justice," she said, holding up a new batch of documents. The crowd roared, cameras flashing, her words a blade cutting through his defenses. She detailed his emails, his callous words, each one proof of his guilt. "He's not a genius," she said, her eyes blazing. "He's a bully, and I'm taking him down." Her team had contacts in Dubai, ready to serve legal papers. She'd make sure he felt her wrath, no matter where he ran. Inside a sleek Dubai penthouse, Musk stood by a window, the city sprawling below, his mind a battlefield. Crockett's press conference played on a muted TV, her face a constant taunt. She'd turned his life's work into a crime, his sacrifices into selfishness. His hands shook with rage, his voice a low snarl as he called his lawyers. "Hit her back," he ordered. "Dig up everything. Her past, her deals, anything to shut her up." He wasn't fleeing. He was plotting, ready to crush her with every weapon he had. Her lawsuit was a wound, but he'd make her bleed worse. Crockett sat in her office, a late-night call from her team lighting up her phone. They'd found Musk's Dubai hideout, a step closer to serving him. She leaned back, her eyes cold, her voice steady. "He thinks he can fight dirty?" she said to her aide. "I'm dirtier." Her lawsuit was airtight, her evidence a mountain. But she wanted more than money. She wanted his name in ruins. She'd heard his team was digging into her past, looking for dirt. Let them try, she thought, her smile grim. She'd faced worse than Musk and won every time. Her fight was for the workers, for justice, and she'd burn his world down to get it. Dubai's neon glow bathed Elon Musk's penthouse, but the luxury felt like a cage. He stood at the window, his face haggard, eyes burning with a fury that hadn't dimmed. His laptop screen glowed with Jasmine Crockett's latest attack, a televised rally where she'd waved his emails like a war flag, calling him a heartless crook who'd gutted lives for profit. Her $750 million lawsuit was choking his empire, and now word was spreading that her team had tracked him to Dubai. His hands shook as he poured a drink, his voice a low snarl. "She's a nobody," he muttered. "I'll break her." In Dallas, Crockett stormed through a crowded campaign office, her voice sharp, rallying her team. Phones rang, screens flashed with updates. Musk's jet hadn't moved, his Dubai hideout confirmed. She stopped at a desk, her eyes fierce, pointing at a map. "He's cornered," she said, her words clear and hard. "Serve him now." Her team nodded, fueled by her fire. She'd just seen Musk's latest move, a smear campaign, leaked rumors calling her corrupt, a fame-hungry politician. She laughed, cold and fierce. "He's desperate. Let's hit harder." Musk's security team burst into the penthouse, their faces tense. "Legal papers just arrived," one said, dropping a thick envelope on the table. Crockett's lawsuit had followed. Him across continents, her demands for $750 million now official in Dubai's courts. Musk tore it open, his heart pounding, eyes scanning her accusations, fraud, negligence, betrayal of public trust. The TV blared her voice from a new clip, her words like knives. "Musk's running, but he's mine." He slammed the papers down, his voice a roar. "She wants war? I'll give her hell." Crockett stood before a roaring crowd in a Dallas park, her voice booming, her hands raised. "Musk's hiding, but we've got him," she shouted, her eyes blazing. The workers behind her cheered, holding signs with Musk's face crossed out. She'd just learned her legal papers had reached him, a direct hit. Her team had more, Musk's financial records, showing he'd funneled DOGE savings into his own companies. "He's a thief," she told the crowd, her words sharp. "And I'm his judge." Her fight was their fight, and she'd tear him apart for them. Back in Dubai, Musk paced the penthouse, his phone buzzing with panicked calls from his team. Crockett's latest evidence was everywhere. His financial moves exposed, his reputation in tatters. Allies were abandoning him, stocks were tanking, and her voice was a relentless drumbeat, calling him a traitor. His eyes were red, his voice a ragged growl as he dialed his top strategist. "Find her weaknesses," he ordered. "I want her ruined. Her career, her name, everything." He wasn't just fighting to save his empire. He was fighting to make her suffer, to make her pay for daring to challenge him. Crockett sat in a late-night strategy session, her team poring over new data. A source in Dubai had spotted Musk meeting with shady financiers, likely plotting to dodge her lawsuit. She leaned forward, her voice steady, her eyes cold. "He's scrambling," she said. "We're close." Her team had a new weapon, whistleblower testimony from a former Musk aide, detailing his ruthless DOGE orders. She'd use it to tighten the noose, to make him feel the pain of every worker he'd crushed. Musk's smears against her were laughable. She'd faced bigger bullies and left them in the dust. Her fight was unstoppable, and she'd chase him to the end. Musk's Dubai penthouse was a fortress under siege, its walls closing in as dawn broke over the desert city. He stood at the window, his face gaunt, eyes wild with a fury that had consumed every thought. Jasmine Crockett's relentless assault dominated his mind. Her latest rally, broadcast globally, had branded him a thief who'd sold out America. Her $750 million lawsuit a blade slicing through his empire. Her team's whistleblower testimony exposing his cold-blooded DOGE orders had leaked hours ago, and now the world saw him as a monster. His hands trembled, gripping a phone that buzzed with desperate pleas from his dwindling allies. "She's a liar," he growled, his voice hoarse. "I'll ruin her first." In Dallas, Crockett stood in a packed courthouse, her voice booming, as she faced a judge, her eyes blazing with unyielding resolve. "Elon Musk thinks he can hide," she said, her words clear and sharp, holding up the whistleblower's sworn statement. The crowd behind her, workers, activists, reporters, cheered, their anger a living force. Her lawsuit was airtight, her evidence a mountain, and now she'd filed for international sanctions to freeze Musk's assets. "He's guilty," she told the judge, her lips curling. "And I'm his executioner." Her fight was for every life he'd wrecked, and she'd tear him apart until he had nothing left. Musk stormed through the penthouse, his security team trailing, their faces grim. A new alert flashed on his phone. Crockett's sanctions were gaining traction, locking his accounts, strangling his companies. Her voice echoed from a TV, her words like venom. "Musk's finished. He can't run forever." His empire was crumbling, his name a curse, and her relentless pursuit had left him nowhere to turn. He smashed the phone against the wall, his voice a ragged roar. "She's nothing. I'll bury her in her own lies." He called his last loyal fixer, his orders frantic. "Destroy her. Find anything. Do anything. Make her pay." Crockett faced a sea of cameras outside the courthouse, her voice a whip, her hands raised. "Musk's crumbling," she declared, her eyes fierce. "He's out of moves." The crowd roared, their signs demanding justice. She'd just learned Musk's team had tried to bribe her whistleblower to recant. Pathetic. And it failed. Her evidence was bulletproof, her sanctions a noose, and her contacts in Dubai were closing in, ready to drag him to court. "He's a coward," she said, her words cutting. "And I'm his end." Her fight wasn't just for the workers, it was to erase Musk's name from history. In Dubai, Musk stood alone, the penthouse silent, his team gone, his options burned to ash. Crockett's sanctions had frozen his wealth, her lawsuit had shattered his companies, and her voice was a relentless drumbeat, calling him a fraud. His eyes were red, his face streaked with tears of rage, his voice a broken snarl as he stared at a photo of her on the TV. She'd taken everything. His dreams, his legacy, his fight. He grabbed a bag, his hands shaking, his mind racing. Fleeing again was his only move. But to where? Her reach was endless, her hatred a mirror of his own. "This isn't over," he whispered, his voice venom. "I'll come for you." Crockett stood on the courthouse steps, the night air cool, her eyes cold as steel. Her phone buzzed. Musk's jet had taken off from Dubai, destination unknown. She smiled, grim and fierce, her voice low. "Run all you want, Elon," she said to herself. "I've already won." Her sanctions would follow him, her lawsuit would haunt him, and her voice would echo in every corner of the world, branding him a failure. She turned to the crowd, raising a fist, her words a final blow. "He's gone, but he's not free. I've broken him, and I'll never stop." The crowd roared, a requiem for Musk's empire, as she walked away, her fight a fire that left only ashes in its wake.